Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Today we're going to go over the last tutorial for capital structure. It's the chapter 17, capital structure and corporate strategy. So this particular tutorial is going to be very short because most of the questions are theoretical. So I'm going to let you guys go over them by yourselves. As I've said in the past, and yeah, I would encourage you to just go over your notes, try answer the questions. If you're stuck, look at them, look at the answers. If the answers still don't make sense, go over it again, but slowly, and eventually it should make sense. So let's get into this tutorial. So the one question which I wanted to go through was 17.4. So you are the manager of a company that produces motor vehicles. A union contract will come up for renegotiation in 2 months, and you wish to increase your firm's bargaining power prior to hearing the union's initial demands. The union is likely to ask for a 25% increase from existing wage levels of 20 euros per hour for the 1,000 workers at your company. Workers typically work 2,000 hours per year. The firm has 100 million euros of debt outstanding at an interest rate of 10% annually and an equity market value of 200 million. Income before interest is 20 million per year. Assume no taxes. What specific financing strategies would you implement and why? So the answer, they basically say that the firm is currently paying 10% or 100 million times 10%, which is 10 million in interest each year. So this leaves about 10 million of operating income. So if the union wants a wage increase from 20 to 25, 20 euros to 25 per hour, the total increase cost to the firm, it'll just be your €5 increase times the 1,000 workers times the 2,000 hours per worker, and that'll give us 10 million. So if wages were to increase 10 million, obviously the money would need to come from somewhere, so it would be taken out of the operating income. So they say that this increase of 10 million, it will basically eliminate the remaining profit. So if the firm increases its debt to 150 million, the union's request would push the firm into bankruptcy. So in this case, the firm would have more bargaining power. So with the higher debt ratio, the union will have to settle for less than 22.5 per hour. Because if it were to demand that the 25 euros an hour, the firm would be pushed into bankruptcy, which doesn't make sense economically. So yeah, that was that question. And then the last question which I wanted to go through was 17.9. So we've got Western Tretor, which is a cyclical business that's forced to lay off workers during downturns. The CEO estimates that they have saved 50 million during the last recession by laying off excess labor. However, the company had additional expenses of 70 million 3 years later when it had to retrain the new workers. The firm is currently facing a similar situation. The risk-free rate is 4%, but Western's current borrowing rate is 10%. Should Western lay off the workers? If Western was highly levered, it would be able to borrow at 6%. How would this affect the firm's decisions? Discuss how a prospective employee would react on learning that Western has increased its leverage substantially. So the answer, the textbook answer goes like this. So they say at a borrowing rate of 16%, the net present value from laying off the workers is basically this calculation below, and you can see that it's a positive net present value. However, you can see that I've highlighted this part in yellow. I do think that it could be a typo. I think that they've used the wrong rate, borrowing rate. So the 10% which we look at in this calculation, if you were to actually punch that into your calculator as it is, you'll end up with a negative amount, so which would mean a negative net present value. But if you were to change the 10% to 16%, then you would end up with a positive net present value. So it could be a typo, just double check. Yeah, so they say that the positive net present value indicates a gain associated with laying off the workers. So it's worth it for the company to lay off these workers, and then pay 3 years down the line, pay for this training and basically hire new workers from scratch. So it's worth it for them to pay the 70 million 3 years later. That's what this basically says. So at a borrowing rate of 6%, then your net present value actually becomes negative. So at this rate, at a borrowing rate of 6%, the company should not lay off its workers. It's worth it for them to keep them on and keep paying them wages, which they would finance using debt. So if they increase its leverage, then a prospective employee will be less likely to work at Western because the probability of being laid off has increased. So that's basically the 17.9. Yeah, and that's all that I wanted to go through with you. The rest of the questions, please go through them. Go through the answers, make sure you understand the questions, make sure you understand what the answers are trying to tell you. And it'll help your whole understanding of this whole module of capital structure. But yeah, thanks for watching.